So today I'm gonna start dismantling the interior and removing the dashboard in order to replace the heater core on the Corrado. So I have a new heater core. It's a pretty simple part. These are the two hoses that basically go through the firewall and protrude into the engine bay, and hoses connect to go to basically the block and the water pump. But this is the core itself. So this sits inside the passenger compartment, and the hot coolant goes through there and radiates heat. And then the blower and everything from the heater blows it into the cabin. Again, it's a pretty simple looking part, and it comes with different seals and stuff, but it is buried in the interior. So you typically have to remove the entire dashboard. So the dashboard has to come out in order to reach to expose the heater box, which contains the heater core. So I'm just gonna systematically go through and remove everything. There's screws, there's clips, there's everything. A lot of this plastic is brittle because it's old. So it's about using the right tools, not forcing anything, and just kind of taking your time and going through the whole interior. When I mentioned using the proper tools to remove everything, kind of referring to, non-marring pry tools like this. I have the whole set. It even comes with the little panel poppers for the clips to reach way behind. So I'm just gonna take my time, kind of systematically go through and start removing parts in the dash panel, and hopefully get the heater box exposed. So I've removed just about everything that will come off. Removed the glove box, removed the little knee pads that go over to this crash bar, took out these 10 millimeters that actually hold the crash bar in, so those are loose. All the instrument cluster, all the vents, the whole center control, the whole center stack there is out. The trim across the bottom and underneath is out. What else? Popped the speakers out and the covers there. So we're getting there. We're almost at the point where we'll be ready to take out the whole dash assembly. The good thing is I haven't really broken much in the process. I was worried I was going to be breaking clips and screws and in the brackets. The stuff that did break was already broken. There was a couple cracks on the stuff on the center assembly, but it was all I think it's all stuff that's underneath, nothing that's visible. So I think when I put it back together, I will be okay. But yeah, this is the progress so far. It's a little tedious, but actually I thought it was going to be worse. The screws and everything is pretty readily accessible. It all kind of makes sense while you're doing it. There's nothing crazy. All the clips from the back of the switches and everything came off nicely. Nothing there that broke or whatever. So far, so good. So the dash is removed. It was pretty tedious. Just finding all the screws, disconnecting all the plugs, everywhere. The hardest thing was disconnecting all the plugs and freeing the harness from all the clips, the various plastic clips and stuff that were holding it to the inside of the dash. I did remove the steering wheel. I did not remove the stalk or anything like that, the turn signal stalks. I was just careful when I removed and lifted the dashboard out over it. Here's the dash pad with a lot of the bracketry and the frames still in it. So the big tricks with this is there's two bolts, two 10 millimeter bolts that hold the dash on from the engine bay. And they're kind of easy to find because you see these little joints in this piece of trim. There's that little ridge, just like this one. So basically the 10 millimeter nuts are right under here. You can feel them. So there's one here and one there. So that's all from the engine bay side, but you do have to remove like the rain cover and everything. The other big piece is like that crash bar there. When you unbolt that, the one trick is there's one, I think it was a 10 millimeter as well, that you kind of have to reach through the dash, and it's basically secures the whole dash assembly to almost like the console, or to the transmission tunnel. So that one, so if you look, actually it's on this metal bracket, and it was right here, right on the back side of this piece of felt, there's a stud. So that one was like tricky, because if you don't know it's there, it's kind of hard to find. That was really it. You just undo everything else. The other last piece is all the wiring. You kind of have to unhook it from all the, I'll show you, all these like little clips. So that harness is fed through here. There was like little clips on here. And if you don't undo it all, the harness holds the dash in, and it kind of gets frustrating, because you're like, oh, all the bolts are out, but it doesn't move. The harness does a really good job kind of holding everything in place. So the 2 bolts in the dash, I mean, there was a ton of screws that I took off to get all the trim off, and you could see, I mean, this is everything that was up there, from the console to the kick panels to the knee pad, to the duct work, and there's the steering wheel. But this stuff just, I took my time. I didn't break anything, so I was very fortunate with like the brittle plastic and whatnot. But a lot of that foam that you see there is all deteriorated, so I may take the opportunity to replace all that. I'm going to vacuum out any of the HVAC tracks that I can. I'm going to remove the blower motor, kind of stick the shop vac in there anyway. Clean everything up. When I reassemble everything, put new zip ties, keep everything nice, neat, tight. Replace that foam wherever I can, so not to create any squeaks or anything like that. But there it is. I mean, it was kind of tedious. It took a while, but no surprises. Like I said, probably the biggest things are that one bolt, that one nut that was on the back of the dash pad that secures it to the transmission tunnel, and the 2 10 millimeters that are actually on the engine bay side. Other than that, it's just, whatever you see here, and making sure you unclip all the connectors for the harness, and unclip any of the retainers that attach the harness to the dash pad itself. So this is the heater box. I mean, it's really from here all the way to the blower motor over here. So I'm gonna try, this bolt here holds it up. So I'm gonna undo this, and then I'm gonna try to separate this piece, which is like where all the heater controls and the baffles and everything are, and just try to separate this half off of it. I think there's like 2 screws there. You can see these clips below here kind of keep the assembly squished this way. So I am gonna remove that bolt, maybe remove the blower motor. And same thing, while I'm in here, I'm gonna vacuum all this out, clean the whole like HVAC system. So I've been working on freeing up the heater assembly, the heater box, from the actual firewall. So there's 2 bolts that are stacked kind of by the, underneath the coil, which I removed over there, back up in there. And there was 2 10 millimeters that came off. You also, because this car has air conditioning, I had to disconnect the 2 hard AC lines that also go into the heater box for the evaporator, I guess that is. Yeah, because they're all hard mounted lines, without undoing those, you don't have a prayer of moving the heater box. Couple notes about that. You're supposed to properly evacuate the Freon from the AC lines, because venting Freon into the atmosphere is really bad for the environment, bad for the ozone layer and all that fun stuff. So it took me a little while to actually get someone over here who had the tank to basically evacuate the line and collect the Freon. Once those are off, you have to once that's out, you have to undo these 2 19 millimeters here. This one isn't bad to do with, like a straight wrench. This one was a real pain to reach. So the only way I was really able to loosen that one was with a 19mm crow's foot. So I was able just to get in there a little bit at a time and just tweak it, tweak it, tweak it. Tweak it until it came loose. So there it is. Those two are off. I'll replace those O-rings on them once I reassemble all this. But as soon as those come off, the box came loose on the inside. So now that I have the AC lines disconnected and everything else, I'm going to actually try to pull the heater box assembly off of the firewall. I undid a bunch of the lines, like they were all clipped into different spots, all keeping it all tight. So you kind of had to undo everything, where all the lines and the vacuum lines and the wires and these harnesses were all connected. I did take a bunch of pictures before I removed it, so I could kind of put everything back when it's reassembly time. But now I'm just gonna yank this out and hopefully it comes free. So this is definitely coming here. So the AC side is free. This is still tight, but I think it's because I have the two heater hoses still running into the engine compartment where they were cut. So I think I just gotta pull hard. Hopefully nothing breaks. So I undid these clips earlier. So these are the clips that hold basically the air conditioning side of the box to the side with the actual heater core and all the blend doors. So this is out. One thing I want to show is, so here were those AC lines that were inside the firewall, and you can see real quick. Actually, I'll pull the camera down, but you'll see how filthy it is inside of here. So the AC evaporator's in there. You can kind of see it. You can see the fins of it. It is filthy on this side. This big hole on the top is a open air vent. This is like the air intake. This is, I'll show it real quick, but this is the air intake that is located under the hood in front of the windshield, like in the cowl area. So air and all sorts of debris gets in here. As you can see down in here, I have pine needles and all sorts. It's like a bird's nest, and it's even worse in there. The box is split. Now I'm going to try to remove the heater piece, the heater box. It's snagging up a little on where you can tell where the hoses go through the firewall. It was snagging up a whole bunch. What I did was I went on the other side and actually removed the clamps that were on the little stubs, because the little tabs on the clamps were kind of hanging over the actual firewall sheet metal. So the more you remove from that side, I think the better off you'll be getting this out. So I never removed this lower plenum here, and it looks like I kind of have to play with it a little to get this to come out because of that. There we go. All right, heater box is out. Whew. There's my firewall, all the insulation, and so here are the two lines that went. This is the part that goes through the firewall. So I am going to actually stop this video here, and the next video will be me basically going through the AC side of this box, the heat side of the box, replacing the heater core, but not just replacing the heater core. I will also be repairing these blend doors. These metal doors, see, it's like a galvanized sheet metal. So there's 3 doors in here, and they're basically all controlled by the heater controls. And these are what divert the air where, right? So this is, you know, what diverts the air to the feet, to the defroster only, or up to the windshield, through the dash vents. These doors are what articulate based on the heating controls and divert the air to the appropriate location. These metal doors were covered from the factory with like this sort of foam. And even like if you look, a lot of the wiring has this foam still on it, but it is very, very brittle. And actually there's pieces of it everywhere. As I removed everything, you could tell I mean, there's little pieces of it everywhere. It deteriorates over time. So again, this stuff is what, 30 years old. So it all deteriorated, exposing these big holes in the doors. So there's a whole process in which you have to kind of rewrap the edges of these, seal up these particular holes to kind of get the controls, the heater controls, to work properly. Very common in Volkswagens from this era. There's tons of videos on it, on basically how to restore or repair the blend doors. But in the next video, I'm going to clean this guy out. I'm going to repair the blend doors. I'm going to replace the actual heater core. I'm going to reseal everything on this because, again, there's a lot of that missing foam, and reassemble.